This week on Case Studies with the Biz Doc, it's the second part of Grubhub. I did the original back in 2018. You should go check that out. But this week, we've got the stories that happen now, and Grubhub is no longer flying high. Grubhub. 3 years ago, in June of 2018, I did the Grubhub story, from the venture funding and everything that went with that prior to 2018, and how the founders had a company that was in good position. If you go back and watch that case study, you'll get to the end and you'll see that I thought they had a really promising future ahead. For now, we're going to pick it up in 2018. In 2018, Grubhub had just finished acquiring a bunch of other companies that were out there that were doing door delivery, little regional ones here, there, and everywhere. There is a lot of them. I think there is almost 10 that they had acquired. Integration would be an issue for them, which we'll get to in just a minute. But here they are flying high. They were on the stock market and they had a very strong valuation. Matter of fact, they were heading toward a $13-14 billion valuation. So they were live on the stock market and doing very, very well. Now, this part of the case study, as we pick it up, I call it from leading to bleeding. So here we are in 2018 leading. Let's take a look. First of all, here they are in 2018. They bought all those companies. They had 50% market share. Let me say it again. 50%, half of the pie. DoorDash had about 16%, a number which is going to be very interesting in a few minutes. And they also had Uber Eats and others that were happening there. Postmates was regional, very big in Los Angeles and California, by the way. And yet they had this commanding lead. What happened? The stock has got a $13 billion valuation. That was worth a damn in the first case study. But I'm going to talk about now from leading to bleeding. What happened? Because the market share shifted. From 2018 to 2019, they absolutely went and the line split. DoorDash crosses 30% market share, and it was 30 and 30 where they were about tied and the lines crossed. This was followed by entry into the pandemic and what I called the pandemic wind, which carried DoorDash to 50% market share. Grubhub kept falling to 16% market share. Meanwhile, Uber Eats, which was barely 10% and just getting into Eats, remember Uber Delivery, Uber Eats, Uber everything else, well, they had actually kind of stumbled and gone slow and ultimately decided to only bet on markets they could be first or second, which meant they drove it up to 20% market share, not worried about the market share of everywhere, but worried about where can we be first or second, and we will play in those markets. That was their strategy. Meanwhile, DoorDash put together a strategy that took it to 15%, and where we sit today, poor Grubhub is at 16% market share. Now, along the way, they started into strategic alternatives. Strategic alternatives. What it is, let's get a banker and sell this thing. The ship is sinking. Well, maybe it wasn't quite like that, but they had problems. From a $13 billion peak, they finally found a buyer, Just Eat Takeaway, which is a European company, which made an all-stock deal for $7.3 billion. So let me summarize that. They sold it for $7.3 billion only for stock to a European company, half of what the valuation was. And that, my friend, is a damn. That's not an up dam, that is a down dam. That is a damn. They absolutely failed. Remember, Grubhub was public, and Grubhub was focusing on making a profit. Now, what you need to understand is modern technology companies didn't have to focus on making profits. Amazon didn't. Uber still hasn't, Lyft hasn't, but they focused on making a profit, even if it was only a couple $1 million per quarter. Meanwhile, DoorDash was taking big stacks of venture money and investing at a loss in tomorrow's markets, specifically building white label software for those markets, which left Grubhub public, focusing on products while the VC war chest was being spent against them. They could have taken losses and explained what was going on with market share and how they were fighting DoorDash, but they didn't. They could have and shown revenue growth with losses and explained how it was happening in the playing field. You don't think that the investors and the analysts would have understood Uber Eats and DoorDash was going on? Yes, they would have. Remember all those acquisitions I talked about? And if you go and look at the first Biz Doc case study from June 2018 on Grubhub, I list them out. And the little Pac-Man going and all these things they did. It looked smart. But at the end of the day, they didn't integrate them. Now, what do I mean by integration? Integration is where you get your systems, your operations, and your people all pointed in the same direction, working together, so it's now part of the bigger company, and it's operating part of the bigger company. But they didn't do that. The acquisitions were left by themselves, operating by themselves. You're not going to get momentum and scale doing that. They didn't integrate them. DoorDash had incredible technology that they put together, and they white labeled it. They allowed the restaurants to use the white label software. Let's say we had our favorite restaurant, George's Ribs. Well, George could use the software, but it looked like George's Ribs. So online and then on the DoorDash app, it looked like George, but it was giving George's Ribs all these benefits, and it was provided by DoorDash. So they were giving this white label software to the restaurants to really help them. Meanwhile, Grubhub had its own software that was very clunky and locked in. So whiff number 3 is DoorDash invested in technology to make a superior software that helped the restaurants that they were delivering for. Number 4, and this is big, logistics of delivery versus food itself. DoorDash thought of itself as, what can I deliver to your door? First, I deliver food, hot and great from your favorite restaurants. Second, they thought, well, what if I could deliver things from the drugstore or a pet store, get pet food? We could deliver whatever to the door, couldn't we? Yes, we could. So they thought of themselves, DoorDash, as a logistics company. Grubhub thought of themselves as grub, period. We're all about food, we're all about restaurants. It's all about grub. And inside Grubhub, there were executives that were saying, hey, if somebody's getting chicken soup because they're sick, why can't we pick up Tylenol or Advil for them at the drugstore as well? No, we're all about grub. Number 5, restaurant relationships. This affects everybody delivering. Uber has had their chapter, DoorDash has had their chapter, and Grubhub had their chapter of where they would pull restaurants in and give them a site and automatically add them without their permission because they wanted more restaurants on the list. And then restaurants would be upset saying, wait a minute, you're bringing me an order, but you're taking 30%. I didn't want this. This happened to everybody, but Grubhub had the biggest controversy among the controversies. Number 6, the city versus the burbs. For whatever reason, and they were born in Chicago, Grubhub focused on cities and core, whereas DoorDash was focusing on the burbs. And with the pandemic wind pushing market share for DoorDash, focusing on the burbs turned out to be a good thing. And so there was a market focus here that did not play in Grubhub's favor after the momentum hit and they were losing the market share where DoorDash was gaining it with fabulous software, execution, market focus, what have you. Which brings me to the summary. At the end of the first case study, I said great things about the Grubhub leadership. I thought they were well positioned. I thought things could go well. And I went back and I looked at that case study and I still believe that today. But from that point forward, in 2018 to 2019, this was a failure of management to pivot, a failure to see yourself as a logistics company versus just food, failure to see yourself as a technology company that needs to make better software, where DoorDash was doing exactly that and kicking your butt, a failure to see the acquisitions to be integrated into the Grubhub family so that they all operate the same and you could get scale of operation, scale of cost, scale of revenue, and then strategically not going to your board and others and saying, we need to raise money, and we need to take a loss for a while, and this is why we have to do it. Take a look at Uber, take a look at DoorDash, take a look at the playing field. This is our playing field, and we have to do it. They didn't do it. So this was a failure of management to pivot and manage in the face of competitive strength. For the whole story, I really wish you go back and watch 1.0 and watch this case study back to back. I think this is a magnificent story of opportunity missed, from leading to bleeding. Well, that's what I think about the second chapter in the Grubhub story. Please leave a comment down below. Tell me what you think. I answer as many as I can. If you like this one, maybe go check out this from the Biz Doc archive as well, in addition to watching the first part of Grubhub from 2018. I think you put it together, you'll enjoy them both. Thanks for watching. I'm Tom ELLSWORTH, the Biz Doc, and I hope I left you better than I found you.